Hello and welcome viewers. You're watching Perspective with your host Kriti Mishra. Today we'll take a closer look at the Inter-Services Organizations Command, Control and Discipline Bill 2023. The Parliamentary Standing Committee on Defence gave a go-ahead to this bill, which seeks to empower the Commander-in-Chief and Officer-in-Command of Inter-Services Organizations with all disciplinary and administrative powers in respect of personnel serving in or attached to such organizations. The proposed bill will essentially be an enabling legislation which empowers the heads of the inter-services organizations to exercise effective command, control and discipline on all personnel of regular Air Force, Army and Navy and to persons of other forces as notified by the central government who are serving in or attached to an inter-services organizations without amending their respective acts. And to understand the implications of this proposed legislation, I am joined by an illustrious panel of guests. Joining us in the studio, Lieutenant General Dr. D.P. Vats, retired. He's also Member Parliament representing the BJP. Joining us through virtual platform, Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha, retired, Defence Policies Expert. I welcome both of you to Sunset TV and thank you so much for joining us. And General Vats, let me begin the program with you. Now, you've served in the forces. You are also part of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Defence. You participated in the deliberations on this bill. So take us through the importance and the need of this bill and the key provisions of the bill.
You see, Kriti, we have inter-services organizations like Andaman and Nicobar Command, National Defence Academy, Strategic Forces Command, then Defence Services Staff College, NDC, National Defence College, so on and so forth, where personnel from all the three services are serving or attached or even under training to exercise disciplinary command and control authority over them and administrative authority over them. So far, the act doesn't exist and only the naval personnel can be tried by Naval Act, Army personnel by Army Act of 1950 and Air Force personnel by Air Force Act of 1950. In nutshell, their commander still doesn't have the authority for disciplinary and administrative control for which the personnel have to be attached to naval units or army units or air force units for such purposes. Now, as you mentioned yourself, the bill will enable the commanders to exercise command and control administratively and discipline-wise. Discipline is the key to administration in armed forces. And discipline entails punishments also. For that, it should be deterrent and exemplary. If a commander doesn't have those powers, then his effectivity goes down. This bill is that way, enables, empowers the commanders to exercise full control over their command, that is inter-services organizations. Simultaneously, to facilitate the formation of such organizations, means constitution of such organizations. That is the effectivity or advantage of this inter-services organization bill, command, control and discipline 2023, which was brought in Parliament in Lok Sabha. Then it was referred to Defence Standing Committee.
Right, sir.
And the Defence Standing Committee deliberated over it, obtained the views of representatives of Defence Ministry, views of legal luminaries, and language was constituted by the Ministry of Law and Justice, weighing it on the anvil of the validity in eyes of law. Because after the punishment or administrative action, the affected personnel are entitled or they are at liberty to go to courts, and prior to that, tribunals.
Right.
All those angles have been thrashed out because the deliberation started in 2014, and then various meetings have taken place. The bill has been presented by the Judge Advocate Generals of Navy, Army, Air Force to the Chiefs of Staff Committee, then to the representatives of the ministry, and finally to the Law Ministry, and then Defense Standing Committee.
Right.
And now the committee has ratified
Yes, sir.
the bill to be presented in the parliament.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much for giving us that broader picture. But since a very important point that you mentioned, sir, was about discipline, we know that discipline is the bedrock of our forces. So I'll take that to you, Admiral Sinha. Presently, the service personnel of Air Force, Army and Navy are governed by the provisions of the Air Force Act 1950, the Army Act 1950, and the Navy Act of 1957. For the maintenance of discipline and proper discharge of their duties, how do you analyze the importance of this bill?
Thank you for getting me on your show. I think it's very important what was happening when I was heading the Joint Service Headquarters. The cases of discipline or indiscipline, when they came up in the Andaman Nicobar Command, which is the Tri-Service Command, it used to be an extremely difficult situation. Let us say that an army soldier, he had committed an error or he had committed something which required punishment, or let's say a naval officer who's committed some, default. The investigation could be done by any other officer, in the command. But the award of punishment and award of the administrative action, it could not be done by the commander-in-chief of the Andaman Nicobar Command unless he belonged to that particular service. So this is a very important step. Otherwise, it was not acting as a deterrent, because the commander-in-chief was not empowered to punish the officer or sailor who was defaulted, just like as the honorable member of parliament just mentioned. So I think that it is going to hasten the process of, fault finding, investigation against any indiscipline, and it is going to strengthen the judicial system within the service. And it will. It is not that justice delayed and justice denied. Now the justice will not be delayed. It will be done quite quickly at the commander-in-chief level. Similarly, for the tri-service institutions of the training institutions, like the Honorable MP said, NDA, National Defence College, and the Staff College, and other colleges. And I think that's a very good step. It has been waiting since long time. I remember that we broached this subject in 2010-11, but the government changed, and now a lot of ratification has been done by the Standing Committee on Defence, and finally it will see the daylight. So I think it's going to be very important tool in the hands of the commander-in-chief, irrespective of which service does he belong to, and he will be empowered to take the administrative action or the punishments as empowered to any other commander-in-chief of the three services.
Right, sir. A very important point, Dr. Vats, I'd like to understand here is about the theatre command system. Help us understand the entire concept for our audience.
You see, concept of theatre command again emerged from the functional aspect and geographical aspect. Basically, now in modern warfare, all elements, I should say naval elements, Air Force elements, and Army elements need to function together. And for big armies, especially like American Armed Forces, they have geographical commands and functional commands. Our rivals, like China, are also having 5 commands: their Western theater, their Eastern theater, their Northern theater, then their Central. Same way, seeing the requirement of the day, threat perception, and our vulnerabilities at sea, on land, to defend our territorial integrity and interests of the nation. We also thought the need of theater commands. That's why a post of CDS was created.
That's right.
Prior to that, integration was done, and Admiral Sinha himself has also remained in command of the Tri-Services organization. So it is to synergize, it is to optimize, and it is to involve all the elements, even the attached forces or deputed forces like paramilitary forces, and to optimize and to defend the nation. That concept sometimes 5 commands also, sometimes 3 commands also, that will depend upon the requirements and affordability of our finances and nation. It is basically to synergize and to act in tandem for all the forces under command.
Absolutely, sir. You made a very important point there. And as you said, that Admiral Sinha has also been part of the Tri-Services organizations. Sir, I'd like to understand, what are the practical problems?
Well, practical problem, I must tell you that whenever emergency or a war-like situation arrived and the government gave an order that we should defend our territorial integrity, all 3 services used to start doing their planning separately. And thereafter, they were taking on the task individually. In some places, they had to do it together. For example, the Army and the Air Force on the land borders. So therefore, there was always a delay in getting the firepower or the different assets of other services onto a particular target. And therefore, there was always an issue about how will the command and control, who will order the squadrons to move, who will order the troops to move or the regiments to move from one place to another in a real war-like situation. Though in 1971, it was a very good, sort of example of the tri-service unity or tri-service coordination. It worked. And probably, it may work even the next time. But that needed to be institutionalized, meaning that moment the war orders or the orders to take on on a target or an adversary, it comes, the theater commander will sit down and he will do the entire planning, and he's got all the elements of other 2 services with him. Once the planning is done, the how much of firepower, will it be airborne firepower, or will it be from the sea, or will it only be the land forces which will take on the target which has been identified by the in the Ministry of Defense. So I think that it will synergize the action. It will also concentrate the firepower, all that the country has, onto a target, depending upon its importance. If the target is very important, then probably all 3 services firepower from wherever they are, it will be brought to bear on that target. So this is a very important step, and I think that the practical problems of utilizing the assets of the other services through their service headquarters, that will be done away with, because the theater
Absolutely.
commander will be empowered to move the forces within his command, which will consist of all 3 services assets. Or maybe in the case of a maritime command, it may only be Navy and the Air Force. In case of an amphibious operation, maybe all three, which will be under a naval commander. So I think it facilitates the planning. It also facilitates the synergizing of firepower and bringing to bear all that the country has to take on a target. So that's the big picture.
Absolutely, sir. Synergy is very important. But, sir, I'd also like to understand what will be the impact of this bill on tri-services theaterization plans that we have ahead.
As Admiral Sinha has brought out, it will prevent compartmentalization, means three services or two services acting under one command, under one planning, and practically preventing those requisitions. Okay, we need that many aircrafts, that much firepower. Now it will be pooled on command and very rightly brought out in 1971 war. Complete command means under Field Marshal Manik Shah led to victory. Same way, this synergy will effectively be utilized. What was the perspective, as Admiral Sinha has mentioned? First, let us move towards that. Let us prevent the compartmentalization, and gradually we will go towards this concept.
Right, sir. And as you said in the beginning, that security and threat perceptions are changing, and the military has to respond very effectively and quickly. Sir, in that aspect, how do you see the impact of this proposed legislation?
So far, as I mentioned, so these commands at present for the defense of the country. But as our economy permits, today we have limited squadrons, authorized more. But if you see at the bigger nations, where the resources are enormous, then we may also multiply. And that multiplication, like US does the policing of the world, same way when we can afford, then we can also achieve offensive actions beyond our borders. For that, this concept will marry up with the modern concept, marry up with our adversaries to face the threat perception to our territory, and simultaneously to be in tandem with our allies as the time and as the occasion demands. And our actions can be overseas, beyond the Indian Ocean, meeting the defense requirements of the world and nation.
Right, sir. And as you said, that it is a very, very important step in terms of ensuring that there's synergy between the forces. Admiral Sinha, I'd like to give you the floor for the closing remarks about greater integration and joint manship amongst the armed forces personnel.
Indeed. In fact, the entire intention is to have a sort of better jointness. Right now, it's only in the training institutions and some of the organizations like the Andaman Nicobar Command and the Defense Space Agency and the organizations like that, where the three services are working together. But what will happen now? That you will find the officers of one service going into headquarters and operational units of the other service, so that they better understand as to what are the nuances of that particular service in applying force or utilizing force. So I think that this is extremely good development, and I'm sure that we will settle down in the due course. Similarly, as the Honorable MP said, the time may come when our economy will permit to also to help our partners and in other countries. For example, if it is the Eastern Command and there is some requirement in the Southeast Asia or maybe on the East Asia, and they ask for any help, then we should be, that particular command should be able to deliver. And all three services will be there under one command, and there will be better synergy, better understanding of each other's capability, and not make any mistakes in application of power.
Absolutely. General Watts, your closing thoughts.
What I will rather carry home message is, this is the requirement of time, requirement of our threat perception for us to defend our territories, and viewing the future wars and future defense engagements, you need to act at tandem, in synergy, under single commands, at the same time cooperating with the allied commands and achieve the maximum or optimize that effort results into victory.
Well, absolutely, sir. Thank you so much for making all those pertinent points. Thank you so much for joining us, General Watts and Admiral Sinha. Well, viewers, that's all we had for you in this edition. Thanks for watching and stay tuned to Sunset TV. Goodbye for now from my side.